Before we get started, I want to thank Jensen for supporting the channel, and shopping through the link in the description helps keep the channel going. Please subscribe for more bike reviews and trail rides, and let me know what bikes you would like to see on the channel.
All right.
The Santa Cruz 5010 version 5. I've ridden the last two generations of 5010, and a part of me wanted to own both. I've long tried to be a one bike person, and generally that meant an enduro bike.
Take two.
But when the opportunity came, the 5010 was at the top of my list for short travel bikes. A little history on the 5010. Version 3 was incredibly playful and loved jumping, but on the Colorado Front Range, it just seemed dangerous, at least for me. The trails can be very hard-packed, allowing for high speeds, but things often get chunky with big rocks and sharp edges. The V4 went a long way to remedy those concerns. The suspension layout had totally changed, and the mid-stroke was still very supportive and allowed great agility, but did a much better job of traction off the top, and an end stroke that didn't try to toss you when you got in over your head.
Well, Blake did his best to make that not look easy.
So what makes the fifth version of the 5010 so special? Well, the headlines are that Santa Cruz further redefined the suspension and introduced a mixed wheel platform. This new 5010 further expands what the bike is capable of, and maybe the riders that are going to swing a leg over it.
Continuing on. Staying in control. Whew. Oh, there's some good slidey turns. Good job. Seemed to go better for you.
That went a lot better. Yeah, thanks for the. I think I just needed to have the little tip over.
Let's look at the details. The 5010 saw updates similar to other models like the glove box, which is cavernous, the sag window for setup, and a bit of a geo update for the mixed wheel platform. Another standout, besides the mixed wheels, is that updated suspension. It's now more progressive and has less anti-squat. This should allow for more traction and better mid-stroke, as well as bottom mount support. The other details include a SRAM UDH. It's going to be available in aluminum, or the C-level carbon and the CC level carbon frames, with ICG tabs and room for a 220 millimeter rear rotor. That's all pretty great. You also get that little flip chip to change the geometry, just a little. I've had a few Santa Cruzes in the past. Few brands have this level of fit and finish, or the lifetime warranty on the frame and bearings. I'm hoping this is going to be the ultimate lightweight trail ripper. The Geo. I've been riding this thing around in the low setting. With a 476 reach and 633 stack, the 5010 is smack dab in the middle of what I'm comfortable with. The 64.9 degree head angle and 76.8 degree C-tube angle offer great climbing and descending manners. Lastly, the 437 rear center and the 1240 wheelbase make for a maneuverable yet stable bike. Feel free to pause for the high geometry, which is also in the description of this video.
Yeah, any less spicy?
I mean, I think it does a little.
It gets different spicy.
The bike I'm riding. I built this 5010 up from the frame as I had a used XTR group set and a set of Hunt Enduro wide wheels for review. I finished it out with a Fox Factory 34 with the Grip 2 damper, hoping to keep things light. An E13 supplied the bars, as well as a set of tires with their super soft Mopo compound. I was able to run a 1UP Components 210 dropper, and while I was able to get the correct seat height by putting it as far in the frame as possible, you could not fully insert the 210 dropper, even on the size large. That was a bit surprising and probably a little disappointing for some riders. Due to the wheels and tires, the build could certainly be lighter, but I'd rather keep it dependable.
This is my new long-term test bike, the Santa Cruz 5010 version 5. This will be my second ride on it, and I'm excited to see how it does. This new version 5, still sporting 130 mils of travel with the 27.5-inch rear wheel, but now has a 29 up front as well as a 140 fork. So let's see how it does. So we'll start with the climbing. This new Santa Cruz 5010 has a great seated position with a nice upright seat tube in the size large and a decent reach, which with a 40 mil stem feels great and super comfy. Let's see how it handles another switchback. This is a hard one again. Not the first try. Well, that was a pretty legit fall. Attempt number 2. Better line in, and much better. I think I was just getting lazy on the entrance to that. Still, nice light, made it, even if it was 2 tries for today. All right, so after a couple long climbs, how's the new 5010? I'd have to say it definitely climbs up there with the best 120 to 140, 50 bikes I've ridden lately. It does a better job of comfort and traction, but the switchbacks are just as good, and the efficiency is easily there with those bikes. All right, let's get into the fun stuff. So first ride on this bike, we're on a much steeper, more technical trail. This one has a few more features, but is definitely overall a mellower descent. But let's see how it does on those features.
Descending on the 5010 was surprising to me. It was much more composed and stable than I would have thought. The frame stiffness is great for chunky stuff, and I probably made the wrong decision with the Fox 34 on the front. You won't mistake this bike for an enduro rig, but I would put it up against many bikes one step up in travel. On the steeps, the 27.5-inch rear wheel once again helps to keep the front end high and balanced, and the rear wheel does a great job of tracking the ground. That's not to say you can't overwhelm the rear travel, but it did a better job of recovering and staying active when braking. Cornering and jumps. What's to say? This bike rips corners. Mixed wheels and 130 millimeters of travel should. But it's better than many of its peers, and I'd venture to say it's better than its predecessor. So what about jumps? This is a bit harder to quantify. Yes, it is more stable in the air, but that wasn't the nature of the old 5010. It was the maneuverability and playfulness. It's still a supremely playful bike, but you do notice the big wheel when flying through the air. Overall, I'd have to say for this much travel, you can't get much more fun out of a bike.
Whew. Almost too far.
So who's this bike for? I have held the opinion that the 5010 isn't for everyone, everywhere. It's great for jibbing around if you have the skills of the 50-to-1 crew, or I've seen a lot of lycra-clad speedsters on mellower, hard-packed trails. Think Buff Creek if you know Colorado. It's long been a quick and nimble bike, but in the wrong hands or on the wrong terrain, it can be a recipe for disaster. This is a bike that requires a pilot, and if you're getting tired, don't expect the 5010 to save you. It's still not a bike I'd recommend to a newer rider in my area or anyone daily riding more technical trails, but it is by far the most forgiving and capable 5010 to date, and handled everything I threw at it. If you want a fast and capable bike that trends more cross-country, the 5010 is more fun than most old 29-inch bikes I've ridden. It also has better descending characteristics that don't sacrifice efficiency. If you find yourself generally on jump trails but want a bike that can tag along for some steep and tech, you're not going to want to just point and shoot, but the 5010 loves getting air and can handle the tech too. The updated VPP suspension is the best Santa Cruz has done to date. As far as descending traction, it's efficient without being uncomfortable or sacrificing traction on the climbs. And it maintains the 5010's playful nature without completely hanging you out to dry when things get spicy. Final thoughts. For me, this bike can be summed up in 2 rides. My first ride on the 5010 was in the wet, and on one of the more technical trails in my area. This included a number of slimy rock rolls, some very steep bench cut, and a move I've avoided due to fear. In these conditions, it was easy to stay engaged as one wrong move would certainly result in a pretty heavy crash. I came through with a smile and even conquered that move I was scared of.
Yeah! New feature! Woo! That is a nice new to me.
Yeah, positive features.
The second ride was a different story. Conditions were prime. We had rained the day before, so the dirt was tacky, but in the open, the rock was nearly dry. I rode a much mellower trail that had a few high consequence features, but it wasn't all white knuckles. After a small bobble on the first rock face, I wanted a better shot, so I did it again.
It's still not.
Second try was smooth, but the angle could have been better, so I did it again.
Woo!
This is a move I've done so many times, and it ends with a pretty chunky run out, but it's after the crux, so I didn't think much of it. Unfortunately, the third time was not the charm. I bobbled slightly on the rock face, but when I hit the run out, I ran out of talent. Well, after a few stitches in my nose, I'm all good, but it reminded me that opposed to an enduro bike that will correct sloppy technique, the 5010 demands your engagement. This 5010 retains much of what I loved about the old bike, but especially for my area, it's just a better trail bike. Let me know what you think and subscribe for more bike reviews and trail riding. Thanks for watching.